Every night I choose silence so you don't hear how broken I am without you.
When love learned to wait, she arrived in Korea on a cold evening, the city glowing with lights that felt both beautiful and lonely. A black American woman with a heavy suitcase and a heavier heart, she told herself she was here for a new beginning, for work, for adventure, but deep down she was running from memories that hurt too much to carry anymore. He lived a quiet life, a Korean man shaped by duty, tradition, and unspoken expectations. His days were predictable: work, family, silence. Love was never something he allowed himself to dream about. His future had already been written by others. Their first meeting was accidental. Rain poured from the sky as if the world was crying. Her umbrella broke in the middle of the street and panic flickered across her face. That was when he stopped beside her, holding out his own umbrella. Without a word, two strangers, one small shelter from the rain. They walked together in silence, at first listening to the sound of water hitting the pavement. Then she laughed softly, embarrassed by the situation. He smiled, shy, genuine, the kind of smile that stays with you. That night something changed. They began meeting again by coincidence. A cafe near the station, a fabric shop owned by his family. Late evenings, walking under city lights, their worlds slowly blended. She told him about America, about her family, her fears, and the loneliness that followed her even across oceans. He told her about his parents, their expectations, and how love in his world came with rules. With him she felt seen, with her he felt free. But love never grows without resistance. People stared, whispers followed her in markets and on trains. Some smiles were kind, others were sharp. His mother noticed the way he looked at her, soft, unguarded. She worried what the neighbors would say, what the family would lose. Tradition stood between them like a silent wall. Still they held on. Late night calls turned into promises, shared laughter turned into quiet confessions, and without realizing it, they fell in love. Then reality arrived. Her visa was ending. Her family in America needed her. The distance between their worlds suddenly felt impossible to ignore. On the night before her departure, they stood beneath the streetlights where they first met. Neither wanted to say the words aloud, but both felt fear of goodbye. I don't know what will happen, she whispered, tears shining in her eyes. He reached for her hand, holding it tightly as if letting go would break him. Then let's not say goodbye, he said softly, let's say see you again. And as the plane lifted her away from Korea, both of them wondered the same painful question. The distance between US New York welcomed her back with noise and motion, the kind that never pauses to breath. Yellow taxis rushed past, people hurried by, and familiar voices filled the air. But inside she felt strangely empty. Home was supposed to feel comforting, yet every night she lay awake staring at the ceiling, wishing she could hear the quiet streets of Korea and his soft voice saying her name. She tried to return to her old life, family dinners, old friends, smiles that came easily to everyone else. But love had changed her. She found herself checking the time, constantly counting the hours until Korea woke up. Their calls became her refuge. When his face appeared on her screen, the distance disappeared for a moment. How was your day, she would ask. Long he would smile, though his eyes always told a deeper story. They shared everything: small victories, hidden fears. Laughter that masked pain. Sometimes they fell asleep on the call phones, resting beside them as if the sound of each other's breathing could close the ocean between them. But distance has a way of exposing reality. Her family began to worry. You're always waiting, her mother said gently one evening. Love shouldn't feel this hard, she nodded, though her heart refused to listen. In Korea his world grew heavier. His parents noticed the changes, the way he stared into space, the way his smile faded too quickly. One night his mother spoke the words he feared most. You're not getting any younger, she said. It's time to think seriously about marriage. They mentioned names, introductions, women who fit perfectly into the life he was expected to live. He sat quietly, hands clenched beneath the table. That night he walked alone through the streets where they once laughed together. Every corner held a memory, her voice, her smile, the way she looked at him like he was enough. When he called her, his voice broke. They don't understand us, he said. They don't even want to try. Tears streamed down her face as she listened. I never wanted to be a burden, she whispered. I never wanted to make your life harder. You're not, he replied quickly. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. But love doesn't erase pressure. Days turned into tension. Calls became filled with pauses instead of laughter. The future hovered between them like a question neither knew how to answer. Then came the night everything changed. After another painful conversation with his family, he called her, but this time his voice was distant, guarded. I think, he hesitated. I think we need some space. Her heart stopped. Space, she repeated softly. I don't know who I am anymore, he confessed. I'm hurting everyone, including you. She swallowed her pain, forcing strength into her voice. If letting go helps you breathe, then I'll do it. When the call ended, she collapsed onto her bed, sobbing into the silence. In Korea, he sat in the dark, phone still glowing in his hand. Knowing he had just broken his own heart, they stopped calling, but letting go wasn't the same as forgetting. She passed places they once planned to visit together and wondered if he still remembered. He opened his drawer every morning, seeing the scarf she had left behind, still carrying her scent. Winter arrived, snow fell in Korea, covering the streets they once walked side by side. She watched it through photos online, imagining him there alone. One night months later, her phone lit up with a message from an unknown number. I still think about you. Her hands trembled. She typed back slowly, so do I. And in that moment, across oceans and silence, they both understood something powerful. Love like theirs doesn't fade quietly. It waits in the shadows. It survives the pain. But one question remained heavier than ever: perfect for a long storytelling video or even a mini-series finale. I'll expand each moment, giving depth to their reunion, inner thoughts, and the journey toward resolution. The day love chose us. Expanded version. Spring had returned to Korea in full bloom. Cherry blossoms painted the streets pink, and white petals drifting like soft confessions carried by the wind. He walked slowly along the familiar paths, the same streets where they had once laughed and dreamed together. Every corner, every shop reminded him of her, the way her laughter could light up even the dullest day, the way she had looked at him as if he was enough, as if he was the only world that mattered. He had tried to move forward. He had tried to obey expectations, to bury his feelings, to live a life that everyone else approved of. Yet the truth remained. She had changed him. No amount of distance, family pressure, or cultural expectation could erase the depth of what they had shared. A difficult conversation. One quiet afternoon, he found himself in the family's fabric shop. His mother was folding cloth with meticulous care. Noticing the exhaustion etched into his face, she didn't speak immediately. She knew the weight he carried. Finally she said gently, "You've been carrying something alone. I see it in your eyes." He took a shaky breath, the words he had held inside spilling out at last. "There's someone I love," he admitted. "I let her go because I was afraid, but losing her has shown me who I truly am. I can't keep living half a life just to please others." His parents were silent, listening as he spoke about distance, love, and the longing that had filled every empty corner of his life. His father finally said, "Love is never easy. If you choose it, you must walk it with strength." "I will," he said firmly. "I am ready to choose love, no matter the cost." That night he made the decision he had delayed for far too long. He booked a flight to New York. The message: across oceans, across the ocean. She had been learning to live again, finding small joys in her routine, rebuilding a heart that had been stretched thin. She had convinced herself she would never hope for a miracle again until her phone vibrated. A single message appeared: "I'm coming." Her hands trembled, her heart pounded like never before. Tears blurred her vision for the first time in months. Hope and fear collided. What if it wasn't real? What if this was just another goodbye waiting to happen? The airport reunion. New York's airport was bustling, people rushing by in a blur. She scanned the crowd frantically, her chest tightening with every passing second. Then through the crowd she saw him, standing still, scanning faces, holding a small bag, looking both nervous and determined. Her Heart leapt, she ran toward him, tears streaming, breath catching. When they collided in each other's arms, the world fell away. He held her like he never wanted to let go, and she pressed her face against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart, the rhythm that had kept her alive during the long months apart. I should have come sooner, he whispered, voice breaking. I should have fought harder for us. You came when it mattered, she said softly. That's all that matters. Rediscovering each other for the next days they explored the city together, talking about everything they had avoided: fears, dreams, doubts, family pressures, and what it meant to truly love someone across worlds. Their laughter returned, delicate at first, then stronger, filled with relief and joy. Every shared glance reminded them why it had been worth the wait. Every touch reminded them of the connection that had survived distance and doubt. Slowly they realized that the love that had once felt impossible was now more real than ever. The goodbye that wasn't. Before he returned to Korea, they stood once more at the airport. The memories of past farewells hung in the air like a heavy fog. She took his hands, holding them tight, gazing into his eyes. This isn't the end, she whispered. He smiled, brushing a stray tear from her cheek. No, he said softly, this is the beginning. We'll build it together, slowly, honestly, across oceans and worlds. We'll face everything together. As the plane lifted, they both felt a sense of peace they hadn't known in months. Love hadn't saved them by chance, it had survived because they had been brave enough to fight for it, honest enough to face the truth, and patient enough to wait for the right moment. Back in Korea, his parents slowly began to accept her, not just as a guest in their lives, but as someone who completed their son in ways tradition never could. In New York, she felt at home, knowing he would cross oceans again and again for them. Two hearts, two countries, one love, and somewhere between cherry blossoms and city lights, laughter and whispered promises, love finally found its home. Love's homecoming. Months had passed since their reunion. Life was no longer about waiting or fearing the unknown. Instead, every day felt like a gift, a proof that love could endure oceans, cultures, and challenges. Korean had awakened fully from winter. The streets were alive with soft sunlight, laughter, and the gentle rustle of leaves. Cherry blossoms had faded, replaced by greenery, but their memory lingered, as if carrying the promise of what had been endured. She walked alongside him through the city streets, hand in hand, heart beating in perfect rhythm with his every glance they exchanged carried months of longing, struggle, and finally reunion. The distance that had once felt insurmountable was now just a shadow of the past. Family acceptance and healing. His parents had been cautious at first, unsure of how to bridge the cultural gap, but seeing their son truly happy softened hearts that had been guarded by tradition. One afternoon, his mother invited her into the kitchen. They sat together, sipping tea, surrounded by the comforting scent of homemade cooking. I was afraid, his mother admitted, placing her hands over hers. I worried that you would take him away from us, but seeing the way you care for him, the way you make him smile, I know you are meant to be part of this family. Tears welled in her eyes. Thank you, she whispered. I never wanted to replace anyone. I only wanted to be someone who loves him as much as you do. His father, standing quietly in the doorway, finally spoke. Love is not always easy, but you two have proven it is stronger than fear and expectation. Welcome to our family. That moment, the gentle acceptance, the warmth of their embrace, was a turning point. She realized love wasn't just about the two of them, it was about building bridges, finding patience, and trusting that hearts could heal, building a life together. They moved into a small apartment overlooking the city skyline. It was modest, but it carried the essence of their journey: photographs from their first rainy evening, souvenirs from trips, and small gifts exchanged during their long-distance months. Their days were simple but full: mornings spent drinking coffee and planning their days, afternoons exploring the city, laughing at small mishaps, evenings cooking meals together, teaching each other cultural recipes, nights sitting on their balcony sharing dreams for the future and reminiscing about the hardships that had made them stronger. Even work And responsibilities couldn't dull the spark. Their phones occasionally buzzed with messages across continents, friends, family obligations, but these interruptions felt minor compared to the reality of being together. The proposal one quiet evening beneath a canopy of stars and the soft glow of streetlights. He turned to her, heart racing. I waited too long, he began, voice shaking slightly. I let fear hold me back, and I don't want to waste another moment. You are my home, my truth, my everything. Will you marry me? Tears fell freely down her cheeks, her lips trembling. She nodded, laughter and sobs spilling together. Yes, she whispered, voice choked with emotion. 1,000 times yes. He slipped a simple ring onto her finger, and they embraced, feeling the weight of the past lift, replaced by hope and certainty around them. The world continued, but for that moment time belonged only to them. The journey ahead. Love had tested them across continents, through families, expectations and personal doubts. It had demanded courage, patience and unrelenting faith, and now they were living proof. Love that is brave, honest and enduring can overcome anything. Walking hand in hand through the streets of Seoul, the city buzzing around them, she realized something profound. Home wasn't a place, home was him. Home was the life they chose together every single day. And as they disappeared into the glowing city lights, laughter and whispered promises blending into the night, one truth remained clear: love, when it waits and fights, always finds its way home. Love did not come back to them as a miracle, it returned as a choice made in quiet moments, in difficult conversations, and in the courage to stay when leaving felt easier. Months after his return from New York, Korea felt different, not because the city had changed, but because he had, and because she now stood beside him, not as a secret, not as a visitor passing through, but as the woman he had chosen to build a life with. They walked through the city hand in hand, feeling the weight of stairs less sharply than before. The whispers still existed, but they no longer defined them. What mattered was the way he reached for her instinctively, the way she leaned into him without fear. Morning sunlight filled their small apartment, the smell of coffee mixed with quiet laughter. Their days became stitched together by routines that felt sacred. This was love after struggle, gentler, deeper, unafraid of silence, facing the world together. The hardest part wasn't loving each other anymore, it was allowing the world to see them. His parents watched from a distance, observing the change in their son. He laughed more, he breathed easier, he looked like someone who had finally stopped pretending. One evening his mother invited her to sit beside her. They shared tea in the kitchen, the air thick with unspoken thoughts. I worried, his mother said softly. I thought loving you would take him far from us. She lowered her eyes respectfully. I never wanted to take him away, I only wanted to walk beside him. His mother studied her for a long moment, then nodded. I see now, she said. He did not lose himself, he found himself that night. His father spoke quietly. Life does not always follow the path we expect, he said, but sometime the right path is the one that brings peace. Acceptance did not come loudly, it came gently. And it was enough, a life chosen daily. They built their life slowly, intentionally. Some days were easy, filled with laughter, shared meals, playful arguments. Other days were heavy, filled with misunderstandings, shaped by culture and upbringing. But this time they stayed. They learned that love wasn't always grand gestures. Sometimes it was patience, sometimes it was listening, sometimes it was choosing to understand instead of defend. At night they sat on their balcony, watching the city glow below. She rested her head on his shoulder, and he held her hand as if reminding himself she was real. I used to think love was something that just happened, he admitted one night, but now I know it's something you choose. Every day, she smiled softly. And I choose you, the promise. One evening beneath soft lights and quiet stars, he asked her to walk with him. They stopped at a familiar street, the place where they had first shared shelter from the rain. He took her hands, his voice steady but full of emotion. I lost you once, he said, and losing you showed me how empty my life was without you. Tears welled in her eyes. I don't promise a perfect life, he continued, but I promise an honest one where you are never alone. He Melt slowly, I choose you in every country, in every season, in every storm. Will you choose me too? She cried openly, now nodding through her tears. I already have, she whispered. I chose you the moment you held that umbrella over me. Home. Their love did not erase the past, it carried it with grace. Every goodbye, every tear, every moment of doubt became proof of how deeply they had loved. They didn't win because love was easy, they won because love was brave too. Cultures, two histories, one home built not by place but by choice. And as they walked forward together, no longer afraid of distance or judgment, the world seemed quieter, softer, because love like theirs no longer needed to explain itself. It had already survived. It had already chosen, and it had finally come home. Lost you once and it taught me how empty life is without you. I don't want a perfect life, I want a true one with you. In every country, in every season, in every storm, you are my home. Will you marry me? She covers her mouth, tears falling, hands shaking. I already chose you, she whispers. Yes. He slips the ring onto her finger. They hold each other tightly as if the world might disappear again.